This is a lecture video for IT 45 and 386. This is one student project of a blast door. He needs just some cleanup. Most of it's pretty much modeled out. A lot of it's really good. I just see some modeling issues that are kind of common that a lot of people do. So I'm going to hit upon them and clean up the model a bit, and depending on the time, maybe I'll get into talking about how to do the UVs on this door. So it's another example of modeling and UVing. First off, the way that this guy's door is modeled, he's got these large wheels up here, and they're kind of made into the wall. So I can understand why the wall is made out to accommodate the door, because it kind of these gears need to be sitting in something. But for right now, I'm going to clean up the scene a little bit. I'm going to get rid of this floor and this ceiling so I can kind of see what I'm doing more. I could also go into the outliner. I could see there's a lot of cleanup that needs to be done here. So I'll start with, he put some lights in there to take some renders. I'm just going to get rid of those for right now. Take a look at the layers. Layers look clean. All right, so he's got one wall and two wall. Like, this is fine for spatial reference. And if this was your own game asset, if you're building the walls that this is going to fit into. But this door is going to Wasteland, and they have the size restrictions so that the door can fit into it. So make sure that the height, length, and width of the door are the restrictions needed to make it work. But again, I'll keep the two walls here for now. So we kind of have the frame of the door, these three cylinders, which kind of act as like locking mechanisms, these large pillars, and these three parts kind of act like the frame of the door. And then we kind of have these large gears and these cylinder parts here. So we have a lot of parts to the door, so that's why this might be a good one to look at and see what's going on. First off, I'm going to delete all the history. And when I delete all the history, it's a lot of extra information I don't need right now because I'm going to start cleaning up on this stuff. You can see a lot of the groups went away. So that really helped clean up our outliner. And if I click on these two groups, you see that they're empty. Basically, I can move stuff out. You see there's nothing there. I can open them. They're these empty transforms that were left over from some type of modeling technique. So I delete them out. Now we're just left with our geometry. Nice, clean. One thing to note is that you'll notice that there's some translation rotations on these. That's fine when you're moving an object around, you're rotating it to fit into place, but everything is kind of in the place that it is right now. So I want to freeze the transforms on these. Again, when you freeze transforms, make sure they're all clicked on. Freeze the transforms. What did that do? It zeroed out the translation rotation, made sure the scaling was set back to 1. So why is that important? Well, I can mess around with this wheel to try and, if I'm taking a look at it for making sure it's all clean, or if I want to use it for other purposes. You see I rotated it, translated, and scaled it, but what if I was like, oh, I really don't like that, or oh, damn it, I forgot to duplicate it and leave one duplicate back where it was. So a really easy way is now I can just zero out my translation, my rotation, and make my scaling 1, and you see the gear kind of pops back into place. So it's good to, at this phase anyway, I'm going to freeze out the transformations. You saw that everything went 0 over here. Let me undo it. You see that there's values here. I'll freeze out the transformations. So now we have a nice clean setup right now to work with. Let me look at the overall tries is 1,800. So again, I can look at these walls and there's only 50 tries. They're not having a big influence. So, it's not like I have to take them into account. But let's see, if I take this cylinder over here, this one, this gear, and this gear, these are kind of like the supplemental parts. They're really cool and they add a lot, but they're kind of on the side here. and you see that they have 600. And let's see, the door frame is 100. That's good. Let me actually open up the notepad right now. So I have like the gears are at let's say 600. The frame of the door is at 100. The walls were at 50, but they're I'm just putting it there just for completeness, but we really don't care. Let's see, the locking mechanism is at 350, so I'll just call that like the bars is at 350. And so we have kind of one part of the door and this door frame part. So I'll kind of just combine them up and call that the doors at 650. All right. And the total being about 1,800. So overall, I'd have to look at what the try count was for the door, but let's just say if this was appropriate, 1,800. Actually, I'll pause it real quick. Okay, I looked at the blast door concept art. It's approximate try count underneath 2,000, and we're going to use texture size maps of 1K. Spatial envelope of the door is 2.5 meters, 2.5 meters by 0.125 meters. So good, we're under the 2,000 count. And now let's see where a lot of our meat, a lot of our, resolution is coming from. So I got the frames, 100, that's cool. The bars are 350. Again, cylinders and spheres are a little difficult to deal with in game. The whole point of in game is trying to get a nice curve, but without having too much resolution. So if I create a sphere and I go into the inputs of that sphere, and as I take these subdivisions down, you see like right now this obviously does not look like a sphere, but if I say like 8 subdivisions on the height and width, we're starting to make it look like a sphere, but it's still kind of straight lined. It's not looking the best. But we get it up to 10, now we're starting to get nice smoothness. 12 is usually pretty good, depending on what, if this is up close, or what the sphere is representing. But you see, as we go up to 20, we're starting to get some nice smoothing. But again, that's a little high res for games. So, 12 might be low. You see how it's kind of looking very faceted. But again, I can take the sphere and say, soften the edges, soften the difference between the faces, not harden them. And you see how it's looking pretty good. You can see that there is some sharp edges, but all in all, that's not bad. You could try increasing this a little bit, make it a little bit more round. So the same issue goes with the cylinder. How much resolution do you need to make this look flat? So right now we're at 20 edges, 20 divisions. He looks pretty good. And again, as you start dropping them down, now we're at 12. So looking a little faceted, we go down to 6, 8, he's looking very faceted. But if you're trying to make a curved cylinder for a pipe or something, maybe 8's good, maybe 10 is good. Again, depending on what it looks like, how big is it in game. But usually maybe something like 12 is pretty good. You see it looks a little faceted, but again, I can take this object, I can set the normal angle. So what this means is all angles that are under 30 will soften it, which is these angles here. All angles over 30 will be hardened, which is these angles up here, because this is a big transition. So if I do that, actually it didn't look like, let me select these, didn't look like it did it. Let me soften it. Yeah, so now it's softened. And these, let me just make sure they're hardened. Yeah, you saw there was like a little pop. You see how he needs a much sharper definition. If I look down here, this weird softness, that's why this should be hardened and this down here should be softened. But anyway, this is what you have to deal with cylinders and spheres, trying to get something to look like it's curved with the least amount of resolution. Which brings me to my first area. So overall, we're under 2,000 tries, but for what you're representing here, we can get this lower here. So let's focus on one thing, maybe the bars. The door itself we have to look at, because 600 is high for just a very square door. The gears, 600 might actually be a right number, because the gears needs a lot of resolution to show this shape, and the same with the cylinders. But let's take a look. First off, the bars. I can click these three to show them. So if I come in here, I could just tell that there's too many edges for a game object. So I'll just start double clicking. Every other one. Looks like I gotta select this edge point here too. I'm just gonna do one of these for now. But if you go around and select every other line, all right, we happen to have an odd number one. There's two up top here, but that's fine. At least we got the bulk of the lines. I can go edit mesh, delete edge vertex. All right, so there's something going on here. His geo wasn't fully connected. It looks like he has faces inside of here. So let me undo that. And it looks like, interesting. Looks like he put like a cone on top of a cylinder. But if you see how I stretch this out, we already create this look that he's trying to do it without this. He has basically bad topology right here because his edges aren't all sewn together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the X-ray mode, and I can look in here. I can get the vertex right here, and I can actually pull it out here. And you see I can basically recreate what he's doing, but using the geometry of a cylinder basically, and not having this kind of double. He kind of has like this double object sitting on top of each other, which is going to make for problems with UVing. And he's probably going to have like Z buffer fighting when you have this like flickering in game, because you have edges on top of each other. So let's see let me think out what the best way to deal with this is. So I can see right here where I'm trying to find some type of marker to remember where this is coming out to. So he's coming in between these two lines right here. So that'll help. So I can go back into my perspective view, get out of X-ray. I'll just select these edges, delete them. Actually, I'll double click. It'll select this whole object. And you see as I move it off, you see it definitely was a cone just sitting on top of a cylinder. So I was able to double click and select the whole thing and move him away from this cylinder. Now I could just delete him. Now I can go in here and select the vertex at this point and pull it out. And I remember it was in between these two lines. So here now we have better edge film. We got rid of geometry we didn't need. So again, I'll go around, and now when I shift and double click, it's actually selecting both lines, whereas before it wasn't letting me doing that. So that should have been my first, inclination that there was something wrong with this geo. This time I go around, those even edges, go to edit, delete edge vertex, so it deletes the vertex too. And the only thing is, when I look in this door, when I imagine these objects moving, these bars moving in and out, you're never going to see this end back part of it. He's always going to be hidden in the door, you know, so that part can be deleted. We don't have to bother UVing and texturing that. So I can go in and just delete these faces. And if he looks a little faceted, you know, we can make sure to select these faces, go normals, soften the edge. And if we look at the two, you see that there's like a hardening here. So I can just go in here, select these edges, double click, and then normals, harden the edge. So now if I look at this one here and this one here, they look exactly the same. This one is 30 tries. This one is 118 because I had this cone sitting on top and I reduced the geo, right? So I'm not gonna, instead of creating the other ones, I'm just gonna duplicate this one, kind of move them. And you can do this more precisely with like the snap to vertex. Actually, maybe I should show that. So if I press the insert key, and I snap my vertex all the way to the end here and press the insert key again, now we're back to normal move, I can hold the V key and snap him so that he's sitting right on top of the other guy. I click on the other one, delete him. Now I basically replaced the high res with the low res. Hold V key, duplicate, hold V key, snap him up again. Delete that one. Now I switched all three out. Now we're down to 90 tries with our locking mechanism. So let me update that. So I just did the bars. I got them down to 90. Let's take a look at one of these columns. All right, one column's 44 tries. That's cool, but I can see a problem here. He probably like extruded out a curve or something, which is great. We have quads going along the sides here. This is a quad. How do I know that? Again, I can go to edge mode. 1, 2, 3, 4 edges to this face. That means that a four-sided, or hence a quad, which is ideal. If you can't do a quad, again, a triangle is just as good. But try for quads. They help out with your modeling tools a lot better. But this up top here is not. So we have to do something with that, and at the bottom too. Now since the bottom is hidden, I'm just going to go ahead and delete that face. That's 10 triangles right there. That I don't have to deal with because he's sitting right on the floor. I'm never going to see that. So we're going to use the split tool. So I can go into object mode, select the object. I could shift right click, go to split. Again, there's the interactive split tool, but then Chris was saying that the split polygon is the older and much more less buggy tool, and I'd have to agree with him. So I can go around here and look how I want to break this up. There's no right way. There's any number of ways to do it. You're ideally just trying to turn it into squares. So this obviously looks like a square to me. I got 1, 2, 3, 4. And 5, so that's not going to work. But I could go from there to there, and now I got this as a quad. So I'll do that. 1, 2, 3, 4. I could press the Y key to repeat the tool. I could go from here to there, make another quad. I got a quad right here, but then I'd have to place a point down, so that's not ideal. But what I could do is maybe something like this, and this looks really big, but there's 1 edge, 2 edge, 3 edge, 4 edge. So what do we got left here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a 6-sided quad. What I could do is place a point here, place a point there, yeah, here, what do I have left? I got a 1, 2, 3, 4. What do I have left here? 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I have all quads on top. So you see how I carved up this one face that was an n-gon, more than 4 faces, and carved them up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quads. So that was cool. It actually turned out to be all quads. Usually that's not the case, but, and then I delete the bottom and all the sides are quads. So we have a nice, I see some funky shading going on here. So since this is, you know, I could try doing the set normal angle and just see how that fixes it. That looks really good. I could also just select it and just say harden edge, because that's all, these are really sharp 90-degree edges, so they're going to be hard anyway, which is just what that set normal angle did. So now I can go over to the other one, and I can, oh, he must be a duplicate, because you saw all my changes happened here. Yeah, he seems to kept his history of being a duplicate. Interesting. Let me just delete all the history again. That was cool. He was a duplicate. I was going to show you what to do if you did one and you didn't have to repeat the other one. Again, you could duplicate him, and he happens, the great thing about modeling is if you keep it symmetric across a point of axis, I could use the scaling tools to just flip him over. Because if you see scale x of -1, he pops right into place on the other side. Because it's going across the x-axis. But it didn't seem to be too symmetric because he wasn't perfectly in place. But at least we flipped the whole Geo, which we had to do anyway, to get him to be the other one. But I could use the insert key to move the pivot, the snap key to snap him to the corner up here, and just snap it to the corner of this guy. And then I could, you know, find my older version either through the outliner or clicking on it and delete them. So that's one way to like clean up one and then, you know, flip them over, and you might have to then snap it into place a little bit more. So let's take a look at this. Yeah, I mean, this is just a cube. So you don't have to do much to it. All I would say is you don't need this under part. It's just one less thing you don't have to worry about. You know, it's one face. It's not like it's going to kill anything, but you're not going to see it. And actually, depending how it's animating, if you're going to see it, you know, that's fine, leave it. But it's just less faces to deal with. Like, I would delete these faces too. And just kind of leave this kind of saddle type Geo, because that's all that's going to be seen. I might even sew him up. I could show you how to drop some edge loops down and kind of merge these objects together. Drop some edge loops here and just line them up with him and make these 3 pieces into one big piece. But again, you don't have to. So the frame that we got here is these 3 pieces. Let me group that. I'm going to call that the frame. Let me actually go and group these 3. Group that, call that the bars. You see I'm starting to organize the scene a little bit. It's not so crazy. So anyway, the frame is 74 tries. It was at 100, not a big change. But it wasn't a big hog anyway, it was just 100 faces. Since these are like eye candy out in the open, big parts of it, you may want to try, you could bevel these really big edges. Let me just show you. If you select some really pronounced edges that are going to be seen really hard, or really in the face, you can try this bevel tool. And then here in the poly bevel, so you can offset it, you know, so it's really tight or really wide, you know. But if you usually do a little tight one, you add a few segments to it if you want to round it out. And you see what that does, it makes a really nice rounding. I may have to Set the normals again. But you can get some really nice highlights on this. But again, you're increasing the resolution. Maybe you don't want to do that. In a real video game workflow, I would duplicate this one. If this is my like low res version, I would actually duplicate them and then create my high res one. So I'd like create like all these edges and the edges going on around here. And maybe bevel that to get a really nice beveled effect going. And then when you see how nice those corners are on this object. And now that I have the high res one, I have the low res one, you'd bake down, you'd use the high res, low res sitting right on top of each other, and you can actually bake the normal map from the high res down to the low res so that the low res one looks like the high res one using that normal map. But again, there's much less geometry. So that's actually how you bake out like really high res down to low res for video games. It's used in animation, standard animation workflows also. But anyway, so we did the frame, so we can look at the door. So there's two parts to it, it looks like. I'm going to group them up, call that the door. I can hide everything. So, okay, this is 92 tries. Let me just hide this one altogether. Again, depending what this door is doing, you might be able to delete all this side stuff. But if like he's moving like this, and he's getting exposed here, then you want to keep that side. But either way, or if he's moving up, you know, then the bottom you want to show. So whatever side is going to be exposed, you can show that. But the rest, you know, can just be deleted. So for now, I'm just going to delete this whole side part. But obviously, if the way that you expect it to animate, you would keep that side. But I'll just delete that. Oh, sorry, faces. Just hit the delete key. And this guy's really flat. I mean, maybe if you extrude him in like this one, you would need this resolution. So if I would edit, extrude, you know, like that, or like this, you would keep that res. But if you're just having a flat door like this, I don't need these edges because they're not actually creating any difference than just this flat plane. You know, that resolution wasn't needed. So everything's good. We got quads going around. This looks good. All right. So I kind of cleaned up that door, inner door part. Now we have this. I'm going to double click on this box, see if, or just move this face. Yeah, this is just a cube sitting on top of the door. He was just kind of combined up, it looks like. Although he is sewn. The front and back is sewn. Okay. So what's going on here is that this face is not a quad, so we have to deal with that. And same with over here. But it looks like the rest, you know, we got these circle cuts in here. So this is going to make these faces really have to be worked out. But let's work on this. These are really actually pretty simple. So let me go into my split tool. Again, that's shift right click on object mode. And it says it can't start on a hole. It doesn't like that side. Yeah, it doesn't like the way that this was cut. So it doesn't want to. This Geo's a little messed up. So I can tell that I'm dealing with some messed up Geo right now. So I'm actually just going to save the scene because this is like a very common area where you can crash when you're using tools because we're dealing with some like unusual geometry. So let me just save the file out. Sure, just call it door in case it crashes. So this face, I might have to use some other tools on it. He's not. Let me try this interactive split tool, see if he can handle this. No. No, you see, he's like, I'm getting a result poly slit. It's doing something, but it's not showing up. I might have to rebuild this Geo. See if I can extract these faces off of here and work with them. Alright, that works. This whole face. Okay, I was able to extract this face off. So now, as he's by himself, let me try this split tool on him. Now he still sees him as a whole. Let's see. Again, the great thing is with having the freeze transformation is I can move this out, work on it, and I can zero this, and I'll just pop back in. So I'm going to move him out and see if I can do some operations on him to make him not think he's a face. So if I do this, kind of extrude him. Let's see if Maya kind of thinks that this, no, can't start on a hole. Let me take a look at the normals. All right, the normals are, he's completely inside out. I can check by turning off the two-side lighting and he's dark. Let me try reversing the normals. All right, the normals are fine. Let me try doing the tool again. No, he doesn't like it. Let me just step back a few. Let me turn on two-sided lighting. Yeah, his normals are correct. Let me try working on this object because he doesn't like these faces. Let me extract them off, move them off. Let me see if I can see how these, oh, okay. All right, see the faces aren't, the edges, the vertices aren't welded. I can tell because I can go to vertex and move one. And it's not like moving this face over here. So I'm going to take this whole object and just do a merge. So if I see, it says I have 264 verts. If I do a merge, it says I have 264 again. That's interesting. This face doesn't have, it does. Alright, this face seems to be separate from him, so I'm going to select this face, I'm going to select this object, mesh combine. I had to do the isolate select again. So let me again do the edit mesh merge. Yeah, I went from like 328 down to 264. So now I think, right. So I click on one of these verts, the whole thing is pulled. All right, that's good. So now if I select on this edge, okay, good. Now it selects this whole edge. Select this edge, goes around like that. So I have two edges selected. I should be able to do a bridge command. Nope. The number of edges needs to be the same. So that's in relation to this box up here, because there's more vertices up here. So if I just drop an edge loop here and one there, kind of in relation to where this box is, it doesn't need to be perfect. Let me try it again. And say bridge. Okay. It might look bad, but this is good. So I take the divisions down to 0. The bridge offset I mess with so it's more in line. So this looks good. I can go around to the back side. Double click, shift double click this one. Do a bridge. You get the same kind of messiness. Return the divisions and mess with the bridge offset. So good. And if you did want to line these verts up, I just select them, hold the V key for snap them right underneath. There. So now it looks clean. All right. So now we have some clean, and you can see everything is quads. I made edge loops here. Now we got quads all over the place now with this frame. So I dealt with this whole issues we're having with this kind of messy, like non-quad face stuff. Now we have all these round holes in here. And now if you noticed with the other holes, I actually got rid of half of these on the actual stick itself, so I could actually go through and get rid of half of these. So that I have just less in general to work with. Alright, so I did the one side. You do the same on this side too, but I'm kind of interested now we have so many. This might be a good way. If I select this face, I just want to try a mesh triangulate. Okay, so I wanted to see what would happen if I triangulated to see. This is kind of like it kind of takes this face and it tries to turn it all into triangles, which is basically what happens to your mesh when it gets exported as an FB actually gets brought into the game engine. All the quads get triangulated into triangles. So each quad is it's two triangles. So if I select this face and I go mesh triangulate, see it puts an edge down it arbitrarily, and now we got two triangles. So I wanted to see what it did to get an idea of how to handle it, and so it's connecting up faces in between these. That's cool. You see how we get like just a lot of random triangles all over the place. And for something like this, where it's got these holes, I think that's the easiest way. I don't really feel like manually stitching all this up. I just wanted to see how the Maya would do it, and if I'd agree with it. So that looks good. So I go ahead and I'll triangulate this face too. So again, it looks all flat and everything, but it's all triangles. And basically we do the same on this side. Just shift clicking. Oops, I think I selected, yeah, I selected 1 inch. I'm actually going to pause it, and I'm just going to do the same thing on this side. Okay, so I went through and just reduced everything so I can go through and triangulate these sides. So now they're not n-gons anymore. All right, so the only other thing I would say with this door is if these bars never actually go all the way through this hole to actually kind of show this hole off, if they're always going to stick out like this on this side, I would actually not make holes here because it's a waste of geometry. These holes are cool because, you know, the bars are always like in this semi open closed state, you know, and so these holes would be viewable, and that's cool. These not so much. Like you can see there's kind of a circle around them, which is cool, but that would actually be faked, more texture, just black around there, than actually making the geo. But depends how your door is functioning. So now we got the door down to about 350. So that's good. We almost like went in half with that. We went from 650 to 350. The only other thing is the gears, really. So these guys, it's the same deal. Let me just put them together. What do we got here? We got gears. I should probably delete these. Not using them anymore. Let me just go ahead and delete the history because I was doing a lot of extractions and stuff. Like here, there's the door. He belongs in here. And these are just the wall. Okay. So I would actually take these groups, group them up into door, you know, just for now. Now it's got a nice hierarchy going on. But anyway, let's take a look at the gears. Again, with the cylinders, if you're only going to see this cylinder, like this end is stuck into this wall, this end is stuck into the door, same over here, I would delete these end caps of these cylinders. So I can actually go into like a side view. No, my views got messed up. Let's try turning this into side. Looks like my side and my top views are the same. So let me try a new side view. Okay, here's my gears. I'll select my gears, isolate, and I can select these faces here. Now what does that do? I basically selected through all four. I selected this part, can delete it. See, now I have an empty cylinder. I can go on and select this cylinder, do the same thing. Very quick, easy way. I use a side view to just hollow out the cylinders. Now the gears, you know, should you delete these inner side of these, but you know, if you rotate them, you'll probably end up seeing them. So you should probably keep all the geo on the gears. You know, there's a lot of res going on here, but the gears are pretty important. They look really good. The only thing is, I think I would low res these cylinders, the same that I did with the others. Now this guy's black. Oh no, it's just, he has some different type of material on him. Okay. Again, I would go in here. Just delete up half these edges. Edit mesh, delete. Select these interfaces, soften them. All right. Now I can duplicate him. Again, move the pivot to like an endpoint. And then I can move them onto this cylinder. Basically just do a quick duplicate over so I don't have to do all the work on that one. And those other gears, you know, they're nice. I wouldn't really low res them. But at least I got the gears down to 520. So not much, but what's my total now? Tries like 1100. So you see I knocked like 700 off. I basically, you know, not half, but close. So you see how much resolution I got out of there. And I cleaned up a lot of model issues that would have been a problem and not shown correctly in the game. So that's how you optimize all the models for this asset. I can quickly look at doing the UVs. I don't know if I'm going to do a whole UV work on this, but basically all the UVs got to be done. They're all a mess. And again, you would duplicate over. Let me work on one and duplicate. So like this gear, his stuff's kind of all over the place. I wouldn't do this gear and then do that one. I would UV this gear and then duplicate them over to here and then delete this one. So I wouldn't have to UV the whole other guy too. So some of this gear is really easy to handle. For example, we got all these faces on this side. If I look at him, you know, this just begs for a planar mapping. If you watch my week 11 video, all this makes sense a lot more. I'm not going to go through in depth because you can watch the week 11 one where I really get in depth with all this. But I just want the planar stuff right now along the x-axis. So I basically want to select these faces, but not these faces. So a quick way might be to select everything, and then actually I can look in top down and create a new one. For some reason these cameras got screwed up. And I can unclick that, all the faces that are pointed in this direction. What I should be left with is, yeah, all the faces pointing on this side, that side, and nothing in the middle of it. So then I can create UVs planar. Again, this is going in the x-axis, X, project. Let's take a look at that. So that's cool. So we got a flat view of the wheel. We got two, they're laying on top of each other, which is either good or bad. If you did want to separate them, you know, you just click one UV and go to UV shell, and it'll select one of the shells. You can move it off. See, now I have two. There's one on this side, one on that side. But for now, I'm going to want them overlapping. They're probably going to share the same texture for all I know. But if they're like one side, if there's a lot of unique stuff like graffiti or dents or dirt or whatever, you might want them to be separate. So again, if they're sharing the same, you leave them right on top of each other, else you can separate them out. So either or. I guess since I just separated them, I'll just continue with the separation technique. But if you're saving space, again, you overlap them and they use the same texture. But if they're going to be highly detailed and what have you, then separating them out. So now we have the faces on the inside here beg for a cylinder, and on the outside here they beg for a cylinder, but then we have these kind of odd faces all over the place. So we're going to have some problems with this, but in general, let's just select all the faces that are down the middle of it. And you see no faces on this side, no faces on that side selected. And we'll do a cylindrical, and you see how funky he looks, but that's because this cylinder mapping is not... Oops, let me undo that. The cylinder wrapping is not perfect. So I'm kind of moving them around to see what's the best mapping. I'm looking over here. I'm getting these really odd results, but if I move them, you see they're starting to line up a little bit. So let me see if I have some numbers I can play with. Yeah, let me 90, negative 90, 90, 0. You get a nice even here. Projection sweep. Does that help at all? If I do up to do like a full cylinder, 360, or just a 180, kind of gets blown out more. I think that's better. So let's click one of these UVs, go into UV mode. Okay, there we go. Let's go into UVs. Click one, see if there's multiple shells going on here now, which there is. This is the whole inside rim. The whole inside right here is kind of like laid out. And then I'll go to UVs. Now we have the outside. And he looks a little weird, like we have a large square, small square. So that's what I was saying. Some of these faces aren't like perfect for a cylinder, but we'll see what, let's apply a, so I'll take this wheel, I'll apply a new material, Lambert, and I'll get a checker pattern on there, and he doesn't look that bad. You see there's might be some stretching up on this part here. So, but each of those faces could be corrected. I think I just got to grab him. Let's see if I can scale him up to like an appropriate size compared to the rest. Just move him out and start making all these squares like the same. So as you see, as I do that, that should alleviate the issue. But now I have to kind of manually work this stuff. So it's just time consuming. You see how I'm like redoing the squares basically. And you can use the alignment tools. This was all covered in the other video, if this is all new to you. So see, I'm kind of building uniform squares for all this, more or less. You see how it's starting to get a little bit more not as stretched out. So I'd actually go through and do that to all these little squares. But anyway, you get the point. So now we have some unwrapped, but you see that we have a seam here, a seam here, but you can't really, that's the way that this thing is manufactured. It's going to have a seam too, so that's fine. Where the welding was and everything. This guy's a cylinder, pretty straightforward. Just create cylindrical mapping, project. Let's rotate this projection so it actually sits on the cylinder correctly. It'll probably be like this. See, we're getting really close here. I just need to fix these numbers so that they're exact. All right, now we got a nice cylinder that's unwrapped here. Can scale them up a little bit, move them over here. We can assign this checkerboard pattern to them. I'm going to hide this wall. All right, so we got one gear completely done. And again, I would just duplicate. And I'm just going to move them over and reproduce this guy. So I'll, again, hold the snapping tool so that I can just snap him right into place. But I'll just tweak him over a little bit. Let's see. Is it this one? Nope. This one. There. So I deleted him, you see. Duplicate him. Do the same thing. Move him over. You can do the snapping tool or just get him into a nice alignment. So now I have the wheel and the cylinder. I only had to unwrap one. And you see as I duplicated him, he kept that on UV and texture assignments. So that's all done. These guys are pretty straightforward. Just, again, this is a cylinder. So let me hide everything. He just has this point area to deal with, but that shouldn't be that difficult. So do a cylindrical wrapping. Move that cylinder. Probably like this will work. So let's take up the... Yeah, he's almost getting there. He's pretty messy though. We just need some exact numbers, which I can plug in here. So it's like this should be 0, this 90, this 90. So we have an exact cylinder. He just looks really squashed, but you see I could take this projection and fatten him up. Then the only thing we have to deal with is we have this one UV out here. I could just move him over back into place. So let's see how that worked. So I'll put a Lambert on here. You can see our squares are not squares, so I stretched him somehow. So yeah, I have to stretch him in this direction and scale him down. You see the squares are almost squares, like there, that's square. All right, and you can see there was some strangeness on the cone here. We can always like unwrap this cone by himself, or just try and go in here and see if we can just alleviate. See if I move this, looks like that alleviated a lot of the issues. So I'm just playing with this. You can deal with the point differently using some type of projection, but I'm happy with him. Again, I would just delete, move him over. Let's move over his pivot point, snap him into place here, take the other one, delete him out, duplicate, snap into place, get the other one, delete them out. Now I have 3 that are unwrapped. This is easy. I mean, this is just a cube. I can just do create automatic mapping. It's the easiest. See that? Works really well on cubes. You open the UV texture editor. Pull out a little bit. All I really want is to just move him over so that maybe shrink him a little bit. He's a little large for what we need. Or try and size up the size of the squares. Let's see if he's sewn. He's not really sewn up, so we can go in here and sew up these edges, and they're kind of sitting right next to each other, so that was really easy. Alright, so I'm going to take one of these columns. Again, this to me just begs for a automatic unwrapping. It's just a cube. Let me grab all the UVs and move them to an area so I know he's not going to overlap something else. And I can work on just sewing up these edges so that's one. You see that they correspond to different sections. So this wants to sew to that one. He kind of flipped them for me, so that was nice. Sometimes that doesn't happen that nicely. Alright, so as I'm sewing this up, see I'm getting rid of all the edges, and I'm just going to have one seam somewhere. And I didn't really plan on it. Let's just see where the seam ends up. Usually you want to aim for the back part. But let's see. Oh, the seam happens to be here, but that's pretty good because, you know, this face is just completely hidden. So that's cool. This top part I would just leave by himself. I wouldn't even know how to begin sewing him up to this. There's just going to be a seam right around that. So leave that. Let's assign the Lambert 3 to him. So he looks really good. Just so you understand why that's good, let's apply a Lambert here, and you can see like the UVs are pretty messed up. They're all stretched and stuff. So I'll take this guy, I'll duplicate him, I'm going to scale him -1 in the X, and just move him right into place, and can delete the other one. Alright, we're almost done. All we have left really is this piece, which again, this is just automatic mapping. He's just a square. So we just have to deal with sewing up some of the edges. We'll move him over here. And again, it's the same sewing process of how you want this all to be sewn up. But I want to wrap this video up. So let's just move on to this guy. Again, the whole thing is begs for automatic mapping. The only thing is we have this kind of cylinder in here. Like these actual faces, you might want to do as cylinder unwrappings. But I'm just going to take the whole object and just automatic unwrap it. Let's apply the Lambert. Pull out. This is what came out of this guy. Again, you would sew him up too to get rid of the seams all over the place. But you should get the idea of where you would sew it up. If you still need help, go back to that week 11 video and you could sew him up. And you know what? The texture might not be great on these cylinder areas. But again, you wouldn't really see in there, so it might not be a big deal, or you just go in there and you do a cylindrical unwrapping inside of them. So now I did everything. They're all unwrapped. And then here's all my parts that I need to kind of piece together into this. So, I mean, everything needs to be scaled down because it's going to need to fit in here. And then other stuff, you know, you have to go through here and see what's the most eye candy. And again, that takes the biggest amount of the space of the texture space. And that's usually the stuff that's up top more. If that you can't see, do this dim image, you can see it better. So I'm starting to pop stuff around. And you see I still have some more room, so I can enlarge some stuff that needs to take up more space on the texture map. Then this is how you go back and forth, and you try and fill up your space as much as you can for all your parts. And that's basically how do you get your UVs. So I just went through the modeling and UVing on this asset, and again you go to Polygon's UV snapshot and you actually create a JPEG image of this layout, and you go into Photoshop and you start slapping your textures on these areas. And since you unwrapped it, you should know what all these areas are. So this was the gears, this is that main door part, you know, here's the cylinder, the bars, you know, so you should know what textures you want to apply to all these areas. And then you do that in Photoshop, you create a material, just, you know, and you plug in your image that got kicked out of Photoshop into your color channel to check it out in Maya. And then when you're happy with that, you export your model out of Maya, and you have your JPEG images, and there's videos for all that too. Thank you.